Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV. Somehow, Rodney and I survived the big snow event, and we both made it into work. How about that? I am Gary Harris. Rodney Orr's across the studio as we continue to social distance here at our WVUA 23 studios inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. And we got some football coming up, but we're going to begin with the round ball. Crimson Tide basketball dominated on the hardwood this past Saturday. Man, I mean, they really did. And they gave people even more to talk about. Alabama scored 115 points in the win over Georgia at Coleman Coliseum. Now, how good was that? Well, that's the most points Alabama has ever scored in an SEC game. Final 115-82. Alabama shot 64.3% from the game, including 18 of 30 from three-point range. I've talked about it before. When they're making shots, they're scary. 12-1 in the SEC now, and Darius Miles had a dunk that was a punctuation mark. Probably should have been a flagrant foul there, too. Alabama finished number 2 with that dunk in ESPN's top 10 SportsCenter plays on Saturday night. Which may be the biggest complaint. Alabama fans think it should have been number 1. Alabama also picked up a road win last week at South Carolina. It's the first time the Crimson Tide scored at least 80 points in back-to-back games since back in mid-January.
It was big for us. You know, guys were locked in, guys were ready, sitting ready to make shots. So I felt like it was big for us, you know, just get back to how we play. The past few games have been slow for us on the offensive end. So, I mean, that's just a testament to us getting in the gym and just staying positive, trusting our games.
You want to hear something even more impressive? You score 115 points, and no player on your team shot it more than 9 times in the game. That's efficient. And if they had not had 18 turnovers, let's say they had 11 or 12 turnovers, they might have had 130 points. As impressive as the performance was, Coach Nate Oates, though, pointed out the team, as I mentioned, had those 18 turnovers, and that's exactly what he talked about. Imagine what it would have looked like if the team had taken better care of the ball. And now it is time for Coach Talk. There's a lot of chatter lately about the SEC championship and Alabama's odds to win it. They've got a nice lead. The team is motivated to get to the end of the season and get that title, but Nate Oates doesn't want the noise about winning a championship to get in the way of the work.
No, we have not talked about what it takes to clinch. Like none of that. We're really just trying to talk about what it takes to beat Texas A&M. I think once we do clinch it outright, if we're fortunate enough to get to that spot, you know, we'll congratulate them. You know, it's good. I mean, shoot, that's a big deal for these guys.
All right, Ronnie, let's jump into what's next because, again, Alabama has a history in recent years of a February swoon, and the Aggies beat Alabama last year inside Coleman Coliseum 74-68. Now, this game has been moved to Thursday afternoon from Wednesday night because of the snow out there in Texas. But this is a A&M team that's going to try to muck it up, and they're going to try to keep the score down, and they're going to get in Alabama's grill. So this is a game where the Crimson Tide might not be able to score 80 or 90 points, and we'll have to find another way to win possibly, Rod.
Well, and they've done that. We've watched them do that. They went about 10 days, didn't play really well, probably not their best basketball, and they're still 12-1 in the SEC. Gary got away with only 1 loss there to Missouri, but so they found ways to win. This team, that's one thing when you're looking at how a program is being developed and built. That's one thing that you really look for. Can you win when maybe you're not playing your best? You find ways to win these games, and they've done that. Yeah,
and winning on the road Thursday would be big because they come back home on Saturday at noon to play a Vanderbilt team that struggled all season long. You heard Coach Oates talk about it, Rod, and I think that is critical. You want to win the championship. That's a big deal. Haven't won one since 2002. Prior to that, it was 1987. Prior to that, it was, you know, the 1970s under C.M. Newton. So it's not like they win them around here every year. But how important is it that you stay focused on the next game rather than get caught up in trying to win a championship?
Well, that's what you do. I mean, that's how you win championships, is you focus on the next step. And I think that's what he's obviously had this team in terms of, you know, their focus. That's really what they've been kind of gearing towards, is that next step. And I think that's where they are right now, Gary. And listen, they're within smelling distance of that SEC championship.
Yeah, and a couple of wins this week would be huge. At A&M on Thursday afternoon, at home against Vanderbilt on Saturday. Well, hard to imagine a better start for Alabama softball considering the circumstances. The Tide season opening tournament out in Austin, Texas was canceled because of all that terrible weather out there in Texas. So Alabama suddenly finds out right before they go to Texas they don't have any games. What do? They go to Montgomery, play Alabama State on Friday in the Singer Classic, win 10-0. Come home, go back on Saturday, play Notre Dame, win 10-0 in 5 innings, and then play a doubleheader against Louisville on Sunday at the Rhodes House. They win 5-0 and 4-0. So they've outscored their opponents 29-0 in the first 4 games. The pitching was unbelievable. And also, on Sunday, head coach Patrick Murphy captured his career 1100th career victory as a softball coach at Alabama.
Just very thankful to be here. You know, it doesn't happen very often that a Division I head coach in a Power 5 conference stays for 25 years. You know, you guys all know that. You've been in sports. It just doesn't happen very often. So I'm very, very filled with gratitude and thankful.
Quick word on that, Rod. 1,100 wins all at one school. That's pretty impressive.
Very impressive. He said 25 years. He looks like he's got another 25.
He does.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I think he may. And Coach Murphy and the Crimson Tide will host the Easton Bama Bash this weekend. Gardner Webb will not be here. They're having a COVID-19 protocol they're having to deal with inside their program. So you see the adjusted schedule for Alabama. They'll play 1 game on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday against Liberty and LSU. Again, Gardner Webb will not be able to play in the tournament. Well, still to come on Tider Insider TV, the 2022 football recruiting class recently secured a 3rd commitment, and a 4th could be on the way. And a longtime Alabama linebacker will pursue a 6th season of eligibility, but not with the Crimson Tide. And coming up, we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. There's the email address and also how you can reach us on Twitter. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide and been doing it for 20 years now. Tider Insider TV will return right after this. And welcome back to TITV. I'm Gary Harris, sitting just across the studio from Tider Insider's Rodney Orr. Well, Alabama just locked down the top-rated 2021 football signing class, and of course, Bama's already working on 2022. 4-star tight end Elijah Brown announced his commitment this past Friday. He's from Wayne High School in Dayton, Ohio, and he's the 3rd player to commit for the class of 2022, joining edge rusher Walter Bob from Lafayette, Louisiana, and linebacker Robert Woodyard from Williamson High School in Mobile. Brown's listed at 6'5" and 230. In an interview with Rodney's website, TiderInsider.com, Brown says Alabama coaches tell him he'll be used all over, both in line, which means besides the tackle, in the slot, and even split out as a wide receiver. Rodney, he's got that kind of versatility, and that's, let's be honest, that's what you're looking for in today's tight end.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at him, he's got the frame that put on weight. He's 230 now or so. Guy that's going to get bigger, stronger, all of those things in this program that they have here to develop him. And he's got the ability to get down the field, Gary, catch the football. So he is looks like a guy that, as he develops, can be really, really good and all around. Already
bench presses 300, squats 400, tall, like I said, 6'5", big frame, 230, can probably get up to 250 easily. As we said, Rodney, there was an interview with him on TiderInsider.com. What are your takeaways from this commitment for the Crimson Tide?
Well, again, I think, you know, it's a position of need. You're always looking for good tight ends, guys that are athletic like him, that can fill out. You know, as you mentioned, Gary, be a guy that can line up on the line of scrimmage and block. So, listen, I think he's a guy that's got a lot of potential. You know, some of these guys come out 6'5", 260, and they're ready to go. He may have some development, but when you look at him long term, he's a guy that can all around be an excellent prospect.
All right, and Alabama continues, of course, to recruit for 2022. Quarterback Ty Simpson is expected to announce his commitment on February 26th. He was originally scheduled for this Friday, the 19th, but because of all the snow there in Tennessee, he wants to do it at his high school, so he's moved it back a week. He's a 4-star recruit from Westview High School in Martin, Tennessee. He's the son of UT Martin head coach Jason Simpson, and his recruitment appears to be down to Alabama, Clemson, and maybe Tennessee. Rod, tall, 6'2", athletic, has the ability to fill out a little more, and he's one of those guys, you know, that can burn you with his arm and with his feet.
Listen, he is a very athletic guy. I mean, he doesn't necessarily have great speed, but when you talk about escapability, a guy that can make plays on the move. This is him. I mean, this guy can do it. Ty Simpson, I really like him. You said he's a 4-star. I think by the end of the process, Gary, there's a good chance he'll be a 5-star player. There you see him evading the rush, throwing the ball on the run, making plays down the field. I really like him. You mentioned those 3 schools, Alabama, Clemson, and Tennessee. Texas A&M's been in there, Notre Dame, some other schools as well. We'll see what happens. I don't have a great feel on this. I do have someone that I trust that's telling me they think it's Alabama. We'll see what happens. Jay Graham, of course, being added to the staff, helped recruit him at Tennessee. But, we'll see what happens. I think Clemson's in there. They feel really good about their chances as well.
Yeah, Alabama battling Clemson on the field and off. And, Rodney, I hate to be this simplistic, but he's the son of a coach, which, is big for a quarterback. He's been learning the game probably since he was in the crib.
Yeah, and he wants to be a coach. I mean, he says that's his goal, Gary. And one thing that sticks out to me is he keeps talking about the SEC, playing in the SEC. So maybe that's a good sign for Alabama.
Well, you know what they say, the best want to play with the best and against the best, and that is the Southeastern Conference. Well, former Crimson Tide linebacker, and I say former because Ben Davis has announced on social media that he's entering the transfer portal and leaving Tuscaloosa. He was a great player in high school at Gordo High School. Remember, he was ranked one of the top prospects in the country in the class of 2016, and he was a good player at Alabama. It wasn't like he didn't contribute in his career. He appeared in 24 games, recorded 11 tackles, tackle for loss, had a sack, and was a great teammate. You see physically, if you drew up an outside linebacker, he'd be the guy. His dad, of course, Wayne Davis, still the all-time leading tackler in Alabama football history with 320-plus tackles. Happy for Ben Davis, Rod. He's been one of the most discussed players in the history of Tider Insider TV because he's a local kid that was a 5-star out of high school, didn't maybe live up to the hype, but now has a chance to go get on the field somewhere and be a really productive player.
Well, I tell you what, I think if you make it through 5 years of this program, you're a success. I mean, he didn't quit.
No way.
That's for sure. That's big. Ben had battled injuries. A lot of people maybe didn't know about that. Had some lower leg injuries earlier in his career. You mentioned great teammate. Gary, you never one time heard of Ben Davis out there on social media complaining about lack of playing time or maybe not getting into a game. So he was a great teammate. Did a good 5 years here at Alabama.
And 2 national championship rings. How about that? Well, Alabama is set to hire a new cornerbacks coach, Jay Valai. He'll replace Carl Scott and restores the Bama to Texas recruiting connection because he spent last season, you guessed it, with Texas. Took a job with the Philadelphia Eagles, but left quickly to join Alabama. This coaching staff, Nick Saban loses good coaches. He replaces them with good coaches. And clearly, with what's happened out in Texas, you want to keep a recruiting presence there, and this guy can help you do that, Rod.
Jay Valai, I really like him, man. If you watch his video of the of coaching at Rutgers when he was there, very intense. There you see him there at Texas. He only spent 1 year at Texas, Gary, but he's a native of the state. He's from Euless, Texas, which is in the Dallas area. He's got a lot of contacts. I have a great Texas source who's really, really high on Jay Valai. So I think Alabama's presence recruiting the state of Texas will certainly remain very strong, especially with the addition of Jay Valai.
No doubt about it. And some really sad news. I hate to have to pass this along. Former Alabama defensive lineman Lorenzo Washington passed away on Sunday. He was only 34 years old. He leaves behind a 9-year-old daughter. He signed to play at Alabama under Mike Shula, but it was really under Nick Saban that he came into his own and was a really integral part of that 2009 BCS National Championship team. Coach Statement put out a statement yesterday about how much he'll miss Zoe. And he didn't get drafted and never actually played in a game, but he kicked around with 4 different NFL teams for a couple, 3 years there on different practice squads. Again, Lorenzo Washington passed on at the age of 34. Well, still to come on Tider Insider TV, Alabama softball kicked things off last weekend, and this weekend it's the Bama baseball team's turn to open up the season. And next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the phone number. Love to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, 205-348-9882. Give us a call. Let us know what's on your mind. We'll be back with more TITV right after this timeout. Will begin its season this Friday afternoon. First of 3 against McNeese State here in Tuscaloosa. Alabama enters the season ranked in the preseason poll for the first time in head coach Brad Bohannon's time at the Capstone. And they'll also have a preseason first-team All-America in starting pitcher Connor Prelip. Prelip will take the hill, you better believe, on Friday to begin things off with Antoine John and Dylan Smith pitching on Saturday and Sunday against the Cowboys. Bama baseball ready to roll. And we're ready to roll. Straight to the phone lines. First up tonight is our pal Rick over in Bluff Park. Good evening, Rick. Welcome into TITV.
Hey, fellas, appreciate you taking my call. I'd like to know if there's a time frame on the defensive lineman from Washington, and also talk to me about our defensive backfield next year. Who we got coming back, who we got coming in.
All right,
Thanks
Rick.
again, fellas.
Thanks, Rodney.
Roll Tide, y'all.
Yes, sir. Let's start with JT Tuimoloau, the defensive end out of Washington State, who Alabama continues to recruit.
Yeah, JT is a 5-star player. I mean, he's a tremendous defensive line prospect. And, you know, Rick, we've said a long time we thought it was probably Alabama and Ohio State kind of going back and forth. A lot of people think Ohio State's got the lead. I think Alabama's in really good position right now. But, again, he won't make a decision until April. Oregon, Washington, USC also in the mix. And, again, a really, really good player, JT Tuimoloau. And then also you ask about the secondary.
They're loaded there, aren't they, Rod?
Well, Josh Jobe is back. I think that's big for him. I think he's now going to be in a position to not only become a leader, Gary, but he's going to be able to position himself, I think, maybe as a high draft pick next year. He's certainly very talented. You know, they've got some other cornerbacks that are going to compete, you know, at the other spot. You know, Marcus Banks comes to mind. They've got some other guys that are coming in. Brandon Turnage is still here. He's certainly a very talented young player. And they signed a group. We talked about JaQuincy McKinstry. He's already enrolled. Khalid Jackson's a JUCO player that's got a ton of ability. Could play corner, could play safety. You got Jordan Battle back at safety. DeMarco Helms. Again, a lot of really young, talented players back there in that secondary.
All right. Thanks for the call, Rick. Always good to hear from you. Let's get to an email, Rod. And this is from Sally in Tuscaloosa. Is there a chance Alabama will be a #1 seed in the NCAA tournament? Sally, there's a chance. They had gotten to the #1 line on Joe Lunardi's bracketology a couple of weeks ago and then, you know, lost at Missouri and fell off that one line. But they're a 2 seed right now, and Lunardi's very highly respected. Of course, he doesn't make the actual seedings. The NCAA tournament committee does that. But, Rod, if they could finish strong, I think they're in contention for a 1 seed.
Well, that'd be incredible. You know, I think, last week they did kind of project that. And, you know, we'll see how it plays out again. I think going back to what Nate Oates said earlier, you know, the #1 seed and all that's great. But right now, it's good that they're just focused on what they've got to do next, because if they can take that step, then they're in position for that #1 seed, perhaps, as they continue to take the steps towards it. So, you know, it'd be fantastic, Gary. I think it would be obviously, it'd be unprecedented here.
Alabama's been a 2 seed twice, 87 and 2002. Ironically, the last 2 times they won the SEC regular season championship. So they're definitely in good position to be a 2 seed. They're going to be a high seed, it looks like, and that makes March Madness a lot of fun. All right, one more email before we get to the break from Larry and Gordo, and we talked about Ben Davis earlier. Rodney, where do you think Ben Davis will transfer to? Do you think he'll stay SEC, maybe move down to a Group of 5 school? What do you think he'll be looking for?
You know, I really don't know. I think that was something that kind of has been crossed my mind. And look, I know he seemed to have a good relationship with Kevin Steele. You remember when he came out, Kevin Steele was at Auburn, of course, now at Tennessee. I don't know if Kevin Steele's going to remain at Tennessee. You know, could that be a possibility? Would he follow Kevin somewhere? You know, who knows, Gary? But it's going to be interesting to watch. And, you know, going back to Rick for just a second that called in about the secondary, how about the 2 young players that I didn't mention that I should have? Brian Branch and Malachi Moore.
Yeah.
I think those 2 guys, Rick, are going to be fantastic players as we move along. They already are.
And one thing about Ben Davis is there's going to be a lot of people that show interest in him. I promise you that. A guy that spent 5 years in this program with that kind of physical ability, there'll be no shortage of takers. So we wish Ben Davis the best, that's for sure. All right, phone lines are open. Give us a call right now, 205-348-WVOA. So to come on Tider Insider Television, a former Alabama head coach is making his way back to his roots, and it's still in football. And more, your phone calls, emails, and tweets, as I just said, 205-348-9882. Phone lines are wide open. So it'd be a golden opportunity for you to call in and get through. More TITV is coming up. The former Bama player, assistant coach, and head coach Mike Dubose proving that you can go home again after all. After serving as defensive coordinator for the last 2 seasons, Dubose has been elevated to the head coaching position at Opp High School. He was a standout on the defensive line at Opp in the early 1970s when he earned a scholarship from Coach Paul Bear Bryant to play at Alabama. From 1997 to 2000, Dubose served as the Crimson Tide's head coach, and in 1999, he led Alabama to an SEC championship, but was fired following a 3-8 campaign in 2000. All right, let's go back to the phone lines, and Caleb is with us from up in Hubbardville. Hey, Caleb.
Hey, how you guys doing? Big Roll Tide to y'all.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering what the Bama's chances is of landing transfer linebacker Henry To'otanto. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Henry To'otoa, let's keep in mind, and I'll let Rodney join in here, Caleb, that he's still a player at the University of Tennessee right now. I think if these players were giving this 1 year free transfer where they could go anywhere and be eligible immediately, I certainly think that there's a possibility that Alabama could be a destination for him. But right now, he's still a football player at UT, right, Rod?
He is, and, look, we did a story on him on January the 21st. Our California source told us then that, he was leaning to Alabama. That's what Henry To'otoa would like to do if everything worked out well for him in terms of the transfer rules. I don't think he's looking for a situation, Gary, where he has to sit out a year. So is that transfer rule passed in April that would kind of negate that sit-out penalty? And then would the SEC provide a waiver for players to transfer within the conference? So there's some hurdles to still overcome, but if they can do that, then I think To'otoa certainly wants to be here. If not, then he may stay at Tennessee, or he may go to some place where maybe in Ohio State, for example.
All right. Thanks for the phone calls and emails tonight. Still to come, they say you can't have your cake and eat it too, but a former Alabama baseball player proving that's not the case. We'll be back with more TITV on this cold night in T-Town after this. Congratulations to former Alabama outfielder Georgie Salem. He got married over the weekend, and check out his groomsman cake. It's modeled after groom cake. It's modeled after the Joe, Sul Thomas Stadium. These pictures were posted on Twitter. Wow. Salem's a Vestavia native. He played center field for the Crimson Tide from 2013 through 2016 before he was selected by the Arizona Diamondbacks in the 39th round of the draft. Congratulations to the Salems. And thank you for tuning in on this cold, cold night in Tuscaloosa. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch a replay at 10:30 following the news at 10, or anytime online at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.